Hello and welcome to these two videos which I've made to help my students understand and prepare for sight reading tests in piano exams. In these videos we're going to look at four things. Very quickly, what happens in a sight reading test in a piano exam. Secondly, what is expected, what would be a good result, what would be not such a good result. Thirdly, and most importantly, how can you prepare for a sight reading test in a piano exam. And fourthly, I'll show some books that have been specifically designed to help you improve your sight reading. Let's start with what happens in a sight reading test. So if you're doing your piano exam, you're probably sitting at the piano here, and you've played your pieces or done something, and then the examiner will say, okay, now it's time for some sight reading. And they'll come along with a piece of music that you've never seen before. And they'll put that on the piano, there, and they'll say, okay, just have a look at that for about half a minute, and then when you're ready, play it through to me, please. They'll probably go off, oh, you keep falling over, that's no good. I have to put you right up next to the piano. Now go off and do some more writing. And say, okay, please play the piece. And you sit down, or you are sitting down, and you play the piece. Hopefully your hands have got more fingers than this little guy, so it'll sound really good. After that's finished, thank you very much, piece goes away, and you move on to the next thing in the piano exam. So, what do sight reading examples look like? Well, here are some examples from some different grades, and in this video I'm really only talking up to about grade 5 level, so the beginning levels of sight reading. These are two examples for grade 1 sight reading. And here I'm talking about an Australian music examination system. This is one example and this is another one. In these you can see they're quite short. This grade 1 here is 4 bars long and the left hand is playing for 2 bars, then the right hand's playing. In this one, on the other hand, I think it starts with the right hand and then the left hand, so they're not actually playing together. And the keys are ones that you would probably know in grade 1, G major and F major. This is a grade 3 sight reading example, actually two grade 3 sight reading examples. They're a bit longer, about 8 bars long, and you can see that both hands are playing together. We're going to look at one of these in more detail and look at how you might practice getting really good at this. This one's interesting because it's got both hands starting in the treble clef, which is quite a sneaky idea. And here, by contrast, is a grade 5 sight reading example. That's a similar sort of length. It looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, maybe even 9 bars long. That's interesting. And it's in A major, and it's got a title, Rigodon, so it's a sort of dance type piece, and this will be a little more complicated. So that's sort of what sight reading examples will look like. Let's put the grade 3 one up here, and I'm hoping you might be able to zoom in and see it as we talk about it. So, what is expected in the sight reading test? Well, let's see what would happen if you did a really bad test, a really good test, and an okay test. An okay test will probably have some good continuity and fluency. The music will flow along, and it'll have mainly the correct notes and rhythms. It might be a little bit slow. So, that one there, number 6, the moderato, I'll pretend to try and do an okay test in this. So I'll have a good look at it. Now I'm going to play. So it kept going and the notes were right. It didn't sound really musical, and you might have noticed that I was having to look up and down quite a lot. Let's see what a really good sight reading test would sound like. I'll play the same one and I'll try and play it if I were this little guy who's doing a really good sight reading test. So it'll have all those qualities that the previous one had, but it'll also probably have better dynamics and articulation, a more suitable tempo, and some sort of expression and flair. It might sound something like this, and I think I'm going to emphasise the melody and accompaniment qualities that you can find in this piece. I also noticed the little instruction there at the end to slow down a bit, and I also used a bit of pedal and tried to have some dynamics and some very good singing and accompaniment tone. What would a bad sight reading test sound like? Well, it might stop and start a lot. It might even go back to the beginning and start again. It might change tempo. Often it might have started too fast, and in a really bad case it might give up before the end. And the other thing is that probably the player will be looking up and down an awful lot. They'll need to look up and down. So I'll try and play this one once more and pretend to do a really bad sight reading test. First two bars look easy. It's a sharp. Now I've learned I need to slow down. Go back to the beginning of that line. You get the idea. It won't sound very much like a very good piece of music. So you don't want to do a sight reading test like that. Thank you very much. So, how can you prepare for a sight reading test? There's one thing to say before I talk about all the different ways you can do it, and that is that some people are quite naturally good sight readers. They find this easy. And those people are usually always learning new music. They're learning lots of new pieces. Sometimes they're also playing duets with their friends. And sometimes they're accompanying choirs or even playing perhaps another instrument or even orchestral piano in an orchestra. They're playing lots of stuff every week, and they're playing in a situation where they can't stop. They have to keep going, the rhythm has to keep going. So they get quite used to that. So you can actually help yourself become a naturally good sight reader by using some of those ideas. For example, if every practice session you explored some new music, you'd find you'd soon get better. You could find some pieces in your exam book or your repertoire book that you're not playing, and each day you could learn, or not learn, but play through a few bars or a few lines just to explore what that music is like. You could also perhaps think about finding some other interesting pieces that you'd like to explore. Maybe your brother or sister or friend plays interesting pieces. Perhaps someone in the lesson before you has played a piece that you think sounds good. Or if you've played in a Stedford or a concert, there might be some things that are very interesting there. To explore the music, to get good at sight reading, you need to have the music book, the score, and you need to play some new stuff every day from that. Of course, trying to keep the rhythm going. Exploring can be a lot of fun, so do enjoy that if you can. However, for a lot of us, we actually have to practice sight reading. We have to practice the skills of sight reading. And if you only spend 5 minutes a day, you can really improve on this if you go about it the right way. And what is the right way? Basically, the right way is to look before you play. In the exam, you'll only get 30 to 40 seconds to look before you play, but at home, when you're practicing sight reading and you've got a sight reading example, you spend more time. So, I think that you can do something like a scan, a search, and a study before you play. Your hands shouldn't be on the piano. If I have my example here, I'm going to scan, search and study. You also need to concentrate. And remember, in the exam you won't get a lot of time, but at home you can take as much time as you need, a couple of minutes. So, the first thing is, what are you looking for? The first thing to look for, of course, is the key signature. Look for how many sharps, how many flats. Work out if it's major or minor. You need to look for accidentals, of course. In this example, you see that F sharp, and we think, oh, that's in G major. But then we notice D sharps, and we realise that it's actually in E minor. To check, also look for the finishing note or the finishing chord. In this example, you can see the finishing note is an E, and the finishing chord is an E minor. I would suggest once you've worked out what key it's in, you play the scale. Or if it was in G major, that you also play the arpeggio, or G major. That you also, if you know them, play the broken chords. Here are some grade 3 style broken chords. You'd also do all of this in the left hand. Also, if you know enough theory to know the primary triads, the tonic, built on the 1st degree of the scale, the subdominant, built on the 4th degree of the scale, and the dominant, built on the 5th degree of the scale, I would work those out and play those in each hand. And if you're very good, you can make up a little improvisation using those ones. It's almost certain that those are harmonies that will be being used. So you're doing all of this to get used to the sound of E minor, the sound of the key that this is in, and also for your fingers to get used to navigating the notes in that. We'll continue in the second one where we're going to look at the other things that you're searching, scanning and studying for.